Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. This webinar will be recorded and made available for future viewing on the California Department of Education YouTube webpage. The title of today's webinar is Powering Up with Plant-Based Programs. My name is Julie Borer-Pitchford, and I am a Nutrition Education Consultant with the California Department of Education Nutrition Services Division. I am thrilled to have teamed up with the Humane Society of the United States to bring you this three-part webinar series on plant-based meals in schools. The Humane Society of the United States has been a wonderful partner, and I'm so thankful for the work they are doing with schools to help implement plant-based meals in California. As you can see, we have some great presenters lined up today from a variety of schools. At this time, I would like to introduce Christy Middleton from the Humane Society of the United States, who will be moderating the webinar. Christy is the Managing Director of Food and Nutrition, where she oversees the organization's efforts to help institutions add more plant-based options to their menus. Christy will now introduce our panel presenters. Christy, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much, Julie, and thank you to everyone who's tuned in today. We know that you all have very busy schedules, so we're really grateful for your interest in this topic, and I couldn't be more honored to introduce our speakers today. Joining us are Lindley Connor, who is with High Tech High. She's the Food Nutrition Services Manager and integrated network of 13 charter schools serving approximately 1,200 meals to students daily from K-12 schools across 3 campuses in the San Diego area. After Lindley, we'll hear from Teresa Squibb, who is the Nutrition Services Director for Tustin Unified School District in Anaheim, a stone's throw from Disney. And finally, Alex Emmett will be speaking on behalf of Oakland Unified School District, where she's the farm-to-school supervisor at Oakland Unified, and she's been doing wonderful work there for many years. And just a quick note that I'm from Oakland, so I'm very excited and proud of the work that they're doing there. So at this point, I'd love to turn things over to our first speaker, Lindley. Lindley, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Christy, for the introduction. I'm going to hop right into it. So my whole presentation is on incorporating plant-based nutrition and into your NSLP programs. And a little bit of background on me was I came into our High Tech High Charter Network as of March. I came from NYC in the Department of Education, and it's been a full honor being here in San Diego ever since then. Now, for our history of High Tech High, we opened as of September 2000 as a small public charter school with plans to serve approximately 450 students. High Tech High is involved into an integrative network of 13 charter schools serving approximately 5,300 students in grades K through 12 across 3 campuses. Our 3 campuses are located in San Marcos, Chula Vista, and Point Loma, which was our original site. High Tech High is guided by 4 connected design principles: equity, personalization, authentic work, and collaborative design that set aspirational goals and create a foundation for understanding our approach. Due to being a project-based learning environment, our students have based multiple projects on aspects of the food industry that includes plant-based nutrition. Altogether, we've had about 30 to 40 projects in the last 3 years, all based on aspects of the food industry. But I really want to focus in on one that's close to my heart that I'm working with our 11th and 12th graders on currently. So their project is called a Food Justice Project, and it consists of our students looking into aspects of the food service program as it pertains to our Latino community. During this project, students have decided to look into these particular talking points because with all of our projects, students are able to involve it into any certain topic that they feel is most prevalent to them within it. So some of the questions they asked was GMO products with their marketing schemes, organic labeling restrictions, understanding the farm-to-vendor relations for our own NSLP program, calorie restrictions in the NSLP program in comparison into what our athletes need, and our vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free, and dairy-free options that we offer daily in our program. The interesting part of this project is that the students are extremely concerned into what farmers that we're using for our vending. And also our athletes, it's something that we don't always think of on a daily basis within our NSLP calorie restrictions, that they are of prevalent need, even though we can offer as much salad bar offerings and fruit offerings. Some of them is still not substantial enough. So I thought that was an interesting part that they're working on. And the students' concern into what they're being served prompted a discussion into our vendors and how I myself have incorporated some plant-based nutrition into our campuses. Now we're working with two vendors. San Diego Unified, they supply to our Point Loma campus, and Top Notch Catering, they supply to our Chula Vista and our San Marcos campus. San Diego Unified I'm going to touch a little bit on because I know Fred or Gary are going to speak in the next plant-based webinar, and they have more of an understanding on what they've done to incorporate certain items. But they're supplying to, like I said, our Point Loma campus with at least 100 breakfasts and 420 lunches on average daily. They've incorporated the Harvest of the Month options with information on all of the local farmers that they're supplying from. They have packaged plant-based salads that include ingredients such as pinto beans, corn, avocado, etc. They've actually been a really big hit for our students. And they always have a variety of fresh fruit and vegetables available daily on our salad bars, with even different marketing signs that can tell the students where the different items in the salad bar are supplied from our local farmers. Our top-notch catering for the other two campuses, they supply about 150 breakfasts, 800 lunches, and 490 snacks daily. They work with local farmers and local bread artisans as well, and they offer a large variety of gluten-free, vegetarian, and dairy-free entree items daily. And I want to get into how we worked with the Humane Society this year to incorporate a lot of plant-based dishes. And the number one thing I want to touch upon with the Humane Society is they have over 100 recipes that any school district can truly utilize. They come in, they help train all of your staff. They even will present presentations based on what you're really lacking in your district. If you want to know the environmental benefits to having more plant-based nutrition items, or if you want to know the actual nutritional benefits for your students, they'll provide all of that to your staff. They're a wonderful resource. I really hope from this webinar you all will begin to utilize them. So I'm going to go over a couple menu options that we did work in the kitchens this summer with them on, and then the two that are at the bottom are ones that I've been working on with the catering company that we are implementing in November. So the first one is a kale salad. This has actually been a really big hit for our vegetable option because it's just avocado, lime, and salt as the dressing. So they cut it really thinly and massage it in a couple hours before, just so kale gets rid of that cruciferous taste that I know a lot of our students complained about with our salad last year that we used a chipotle ranch for. So it's been a really great success, and it's so simple too. It's great to offer something that has limited ingredients to it. The hummus rainbow wrap has been one of my personal favorite items because you can utilize it in so many different ways. You can use a variety of vegetables, of carrots, zucchini, peppers. We always love to use jicama because it's something that we can get locally sourced. And we also like to switch around the hummus taste to it. Since we're making our own, thanks to the Humane Society as well, we'll make a garlic one, a Kalamata olive one, a roasted red pepper one, so you can have fun with it. You can make it almost a Mediterranean wrap. You can make it a Mexican wrap. It's just really versatile. Another versatile item was the rice bowl and the rice shaker. We're actually looking into a different packaging mechanism so that it does almost look like a shaker so the children can see all of the layers to it. But it's very simple: brown rice, black beans, handmade salsa, lettuce, and cheese. And we're looking into finally offering vegan ranch dressing as well, just to make everything fully plant-based on all ends of the spectrum. Now, one thing I'm really excited to talk to you all about is our bean and cheese tamales that we're offering. It's kind of our play on, instead of a Meatless Monday, we're doing a Meatless Wednesday. They're handmade, and it became one of our top sellers this year. My favorite part about it is that I didn't want to do any marketing on it. I really am one of the people that pushes for, if you market things as meatless, students are less likely to try it. They'll just go, I'm not a vegetarian or a vegan, I'm not going to have it. We didn't do any marketing on this item whatsoever, and it proved very quickly that since it is one of our top sellers, that you don't need to necessarily market things as meatless, and they can still be just as big of a hit. Another one of those items is our enchiladas. They've been incredible. We're making our own tomatillo sauce. And it's just tortillas, tomatillo, black beans, and queso fresco, and it's been a phenomenal thing too. It's all word of mouth with our students that they learned about it. And the two new items that I want to incorporate in November is we already have sushi on our menu, but I haven't been able to push a vegetarian sushi, and this from the focus groups that we did is already going to be a great hit. With just brown rice, avocado, carrots, cucumber, jicama, cilantro, and our chickpea quinoa salad we offer on our pizza days. And oddly, the kids' trays are actually always full of the salad. It's delicious. And I really like to offer it with something that is a popular menu day. So then if you utilize your popular menu days for items that are kind of a new salad or something that children haven't seen before, it gets them to taste it. And that's how you're actually knowing that your program is working, that you're incorporating in these type of items. So my conclusion to my presentation, our participation has increased on our campuses altogether from incorporating these dishes with the Humane Society. And I really wanted to keep pointing out that we didn't complete any marketing on it because I wanted to prove that it went up by, I'd say at least 8 to 12% altogether from last year without doing any of that. Students are researching where their food comes from, the plant-based diet options, and proclaiming what they like to eat on a regular basis. You just really need to take the time to listen to them and work on doing your focus groups and work on doing presentations to your students on what's actually happening within your program, because then they're more inclined to actually participate in it. And on my end, I'm really proud to be able to be on here to be a voice for other charter schools or small districts that are working with vendor suppliers. If you really want to incorporate plant-based items, we've proven that it will increase your participation and also that your students are overall just asking for it. So if you feel that you don't fully have a voice with your vendor, just know exactly what you want your program to become, what goals you have for your students, and any nutritional education that you want to provide. And I'm sure your vendors are always going to be willing to listen to you. And I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Teresa Squibb whenever she's ready. Thank you all.
Hi, thank you. Thank you. There you go. I'm very excited to be here today sharing our experiences with implementing Meatless Monday at my district. First, I wanted to share a little bit about our district. It's not clicking. So first, we are in Southern California, in Tustin. We're about 10 miles from Disneyland. We have about 24,000 students and about 40% free and reduced. We have 18 elementary, 6 middle, 3 high school, and 1 continuation high school. So for our kitchens, our elementaries are all satellite kitchens. So the food has to be sent ready to eat, hot wrapped from our central kitchen. For our middle schools, we have 1 satellite, 4 cooking kitchens, and one of our middle schools is the central kitchen that serves our elementary schools. And then we also have 3 high schools with cooking kitchens and 1 that is a satellite. So the types of cooking that we do a mix of cooking. We have some ready-to-eat entrees. We bring in some branded outside foods like rice bowls or Papa John pizza. We do some speed scratch, cooking from scratch, and we do barbecues. We do a daily barbecue at the high school, and we do weekly barbecues at the middle school. So we kind of do a mix of all types of cooking, kind of working with our facilities and labor that we have available. But before officially promoting Meatless Monday in my district, I was a little hesitant to start. I wasn't sure how Meatless Monday would go over, and did I really need to add Meatless Monday to my district since we already had vegetarian items on our menu. But, always looking at ways to try to promote our program and looking closer at Meatless Monday, I decided I wanted to give it a try. And some other factors that played into the decision were that, there are health and environmental benefits to eating less meat. And then there's many organizations joining the movement, a lot of school districts, hospitals, different businesses. We did already have a lot of vegetarian items on our menu, and it's definitely a really well thought out marketing tool for my program. And the Humane Society provides a lot of support to schools. We implemented Meatless Monday in about 2014-15. For the elementary and middle school, for elementary and middle school, we did Meatless Monday, and for the high schools, we did mostly meatless, and that's still the same structure that we do today. And we did have a very smooth rollout, positive response from students and staff. The Meatless Monday Starter Guide was a great resource. It helped me in developing staff training, articles for parent newsletters and local newspaper articles. We also used it for school staff training. It was a very useful tool. So the first year, basically, I reviewed our current menu, and looked at the items that were already vegetarian, and then we moved some of those to Mondays. And then we also looked at what we could easily be made into vegetarian or plant-based recipes. For example, the beef chili, we just removed the beef and changed it to bean chili, or removing the chicken and doing cheese enchiladas, and then pepperoni pizza, the cheese pizza. So our menus are a work in progress, and I add menu items that we're trying, every year we add more menu items that are plant-based, using alternative forms of protein like tofu and quinoa and beans, and always looking for ways to, for all our items, always looking for ways to add cleaner label type items in our price range. And then speaking of costs, I know that for all school districts, cost is a concern. My goal is to have our food cost to be about 40% of our revenue, and then plant-based proteins can provide a less expensive meat alternative, which allows me to shift my budget dollars into other areas of the plate. So for some of our current choices that we do at the elementary, we add a new nacho bean and rice dish with corn tortillas. That's pictured here, and then it has the side salad. We offer that to all students. We do a bean and cheese chiminata. We have some bean and cheese tamales, which may be the same we heard about before. We have some made from scratch cheese lasagna with whole grain pasta, and we do a new cold lunch choice, muffins and yogurt, which is very popular. We also serve veggie burgers, tofu rice bowls, and some cheese pizza. For the middle and high school, we do some scratch-made cheese lasagna, mac and cheese, and then we have some enchiladas with refried beans. We do some meatless chicken nuggets, bean and cheese burritos, veggie burgers, and then we added a new fiesta bean salad that features quinoa and black beans served with corn tortillas. That's been very popular. And some of the other recipes we've used in the past that we kind of rotated out and we'll probably rotate back in is the Sarisa penne pasta with kale. We've used some Beyond Meat plant-based. They have a chicken strip that we've used in rice bowls and salads. And then we've had a mac and beef that featured their beefless crumbles. One thing to note when using plant-based proteins, that you need to make sure that the type of protein that the product uses is recognized by the USDA and that they have a product formulation sheet available. So some ways we promoted Meatless Monday, so we do promote it on our menus. I've written short articles for parent and community newspapers. As you can see in the picture, we have Meatless Monday aprons. We've done student taste tests, and we've had Beyond Meat came in and also did taste tests with the students. We worked with the Humane Society, and we hosted a Plant Strong culinary workshop that was open to all surrounding districts and to staff. It was a really fun event. Participants saw cooking demos, learned about Meatless Monday, tasted plant-based entrees that they could easily make at their own district. So Meatless Monday is a program in progress, and some future goals is I would like to conduct more staff training. We did staff training when we first started, but it is important to continue to do some staff training so the staff can then go and help promote the program to students. With our menus, we're always looking to increase plant-based proteins using alternative sources like tofu and beans. And something I'm always working on is overall communication to staff and parents to increase awareness of not only Meatless Monday, but our nutrition services program. So I find that the Meatless Monday is a great way to promote our program and to promote a healthier eating at our school. So now I'm going to hand it over to Alex from Oakland USD.
Great. Well, thanks so much for that introduction. My name is Alex Emmett, and I'm with Oakland Unified School District. I'm going to present a little bit today about some of the work that we've done to reduce meats on our menus and also increase plant-based proteins. So overall, my objective is to introduce the Less Meat, Better Meat recipe development concept, talk a little bit about what we've done with staff professional development, and then overview our progress on student engagement. So nutrition services at Oakland USD, we provide meals at 86 schools across the district. We serve about 40,000 meals per day. Lunch at all of the schools, breakfast at most schools. supper at 22 schools and after-school snack programs at over 60 of our schools. We also provide meals at our child development centers. We run local produce markets at 18 school sites, have about just over 200 employees. And then similar to the previous presentation, we're divided between cooking kitchens and satellite sites. So we have about 30 kitchens that can cook from scratch on site, and then 56 satellite sites that are served by 2 central kitchens. So Farm to School is a strong priority for our district. In the 15-16 school year, we actually invested over $2 million in the local economy, and the map that you see on the right there shows some of the many products that we're buying locally. We launched our Farm to School program in partnership with the Community Alliance of Family Farmers back in the 2006-2007 school year. And our initial focus was on produce. So we incorporated geographic preference into our RFPs, and our goal initially was to source just 25% of our produce locally within a 250-mile radius of Oakland. We exceeded that goal, and we're currently sourcing 50 to 80% of our produce from within a 250-mile radius of Oakland, depending on the season. We buy also a variety of food from counties all across the state, and even some food from companies based right here in Oakland, like Oaktown Spice and Community Grains Pasta. So after Farm to School came a program that we call California Thursdays. California Thursdays was a program that we developed in Oakland in partnership with a Berkeley-based nonprofit, the Center for Eco-Literacy, back in 2013. And for us, this was the first time that we looked into sourcing the whole plate locally. So we started to look for local sources for grains, things like bread, rice, pasta, and also proteins, of course, so things like chicken, beef, and tofu. We quickly kind of realized here as we were doing recipe development for California Thursdays that local high-quality meat products are pretty expensive, especially when they're pre-cooked. And back in 2013, we were not cooking any meat products from a raw state. We were buying only pre-cooked products. So we invested pretty heavily in professional development for our staff, thanks in part to a USDA Farm to School grant, to bring them up to speed on cooking raw meats. And we actually began with chicken. And then during that time, we also began developing recipes that used less meat but better meat, which became a theme for our Farm to School program. So on the next slide here, I have an example of a recipe that's a less meat, better meat sort of concept. So this is a beef and bean chili that we serve at all of our schools, both satellite and cooking sites, once a month. We're using an organic grass-fed beef sourced from Sonoma County, and the recipe was developed by our team and tested with students. It's topped with a little bit of cheddar cheese, and it's served with tortilla chips for dipping, so the students really love it. And it's actually really affordable, and so this slide is kind of breaking down the math for how we're achieving that. So half of the protein in this recipe is from the beef, and then half of the protein is from the vegetable source, which in this case is the beans. So we're getting the 1 ounce meat alternate from 1.36 ounces of ground beef, which is how 80/20 ground beef credits, which is costing us about 34 cents. And then we're getting the 1 ounce meat alternate from a 1/4 cup of kidney and pinto beans in each serving, which is only costing us 5 cents. So all in all, this recipe is costing us about 74 cents, which is pretty good for us. Our budget for a complete meal for 5 components is about $1.25. And similar to what the previous presenter was saying, we try and keep our food costs around 40 to 45% of our revenue overall. So this recipe fits really nicely into that formula. And also, I like to note that many of our more processed menu items actually cost quite a bit more than this scratch-cooked dish that's using a local organic meat and a vegetable protein. So another important shift in our department made to improve the quality of the plant-based meals we serve was actually shifting away from Meatless Mondays to what we call Lean and Green Wednesdays. So Monday is a hard day here at Oakland Unified just because of our production schedule at the central kitchens. Monday's meals are actually made on Thursdays. They're shipped to sites on Fridays where they sit over the weekend, and then they're reheated and served to students on Monday. This time lapse, of course, it doesn't really lend itself well to freshly prepared options like stir fries or salads. But Wednesday's meals have a much shorter journey from production to service. It's Monday to Wednesday, which has allowed us to introduce items like you see on this slide, things like nachos, chow mein, a vegan bolognese sauce that actually uses the Beyond Meat products, and then more colorful side dishes like Fiesta corn salad and California carrot salad. Monday also as a meatless day for us meant a lot of cheese, since we were at the satellite schools focused primarily on pre-packed items like bean and cheese burritos, ravioli, things that hold up really well over the weekend. And of course, as we heard before, cheese, while vegetarian, has a pretty high environmental impact. It's almost the same environmental impact as beef. And so we're actively trying to reduce cheese on our menus and increase plant-based foods. So though you've heard me say that we have introduced new and exciting vegetarian options in Oakland, we've also worked really hard to increase our procurement of better quality meat products like Mary's Chicken and Mindful Meats Beef. We started with California Thursdays meals in 2013, as I said, and now we've expanded to other days. For example, all of the chicken that we serve in our district is either NAE, which means no antibiotics ever, or CRAU, which means certified responsible antibiotic use. And these changes, all in all, have more than doubled our humane meat purchases since 2012, and actually reduced our overall meat purchases by 30%. So how have we made these accomplishments? Early on, we recognized the need to invest in our nutrition services staff. It was a really big jump to go from reheating frozen meat products to cooking raw meat from scratch. And thanks to grants from USDA and CDFA, we have increased our staff professional development hours by 90% since 2013. Also, 86% of staff surveyed report an increase in knowledge since 2013, and this is really important because staff, as we heard before, are your spokespeople, and they're the people who are interacting with students daily. Student engagement is also a top priority for Oakland Unified. We, of course, like everyone, want to feed kids healthy food, not trash cans. We do a lot of taste testing in our district. Thanks to a partnership with Food Corps, we've conducted over 9,000 student taste tests since 2015 at over 85 schools and child development centers, and we've tested more than 40 new or revised recipes. The example you see on this slide here is it's a braised chicken and bean burrito bowl, so kind of similar concept to what I was showing you with the chili before. It's actually a fully reimbursable meal. Half the protein is coming from the chicken, half is coming from beans, and then there's a really lovely corn salad on top. And then rice in the bottom, brown rice in the bottom. And then you see a sticker chart, and this is just a really simple way. We actually use this at both the elementary and the high school level to ask students what they think of the meals. They're just asked to vote, tried it, liked it, or loved it. So what are students saying? We've surveyed students in 2013, 15, and 17 to measure their perceptions of school meals. We found, especially among secondary students, that satisfaction with school meals has increased significantly during this time. I think that's pretty important for us because, in a district like Oakland, we have high free and reduced rate. It's about 72% across the district. Some of our elementary school students are really kind of a captive audience, and we have pretty high participation among elementary schools, especially with high rates of free and reduced eligibility. But with secondary students able to leave campus, that's where we have lower rates of participation. So it's great to see that satisfaction has really increased during this time frame. Between 2015 and 2017, we saw a 23% increase in positive school meal perception among students surveyed at all grade levels who eat school meals regularly. The way we're measuring this are questions like, true or false, I think the cafeteria food is tasty, I think the cafeteria food is freshly prepared, there are fresh fruits and vegetables in the cafeteria food. bottom line, I think students really like the changes that we've made, and they want more fresh food. In fact, we often find that students care more about the label fresh than even local, healthy, vegetarian, sustainable, some of those other attributes that maybe adults really care about. Fresh is a really big one for students. Participation across the district has remained the same between 2013 and 17, despite decreasing enrollment. And at some sites, on-site cooking schools with lower free and reduced eligibility, so more students tend to be bringing lunch from home, we've actually seen participation increase during that time period since we've implemented Lean and Green Wednesdays and California Thursdays, so that's really encouraging. And with that, I will pass it back to Christy to open up the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Alex, Teresa, and Lindley for these wonderful presentations. I learned a lot and was very inspired, and I hope that everybody tuning in learned a lot as well. And now we're going to open things up to questions and answers. And I have a lot of questions myself, but it looks like we have several of them from all of you as well. So over on the right-hand side of your screen, there is a Q&A tab. Please insert your questions there, and we will ask them to all of the panelists or to the individuals who you have indicated that you have the questions for. So I'm going to start off with one question that looks like we answered privately, and that question was if the speakers can provide the recipes that were mentioned that were not on the Humane Society's website. And toward the end of this presentation, I will be sharing the contact information for all of the presenters, and you will be able to reach out to them individually to have access to those resources. We also got a question, I believe this was addressed to Alex, about which USDA grant was being referred to. So Alex, would you be able to share which USDA grant you were referring to in your presentation?
Sure. The grant I was referring to from USDA was a farm-to-school grant, a farm-to-school implementation grant. And actually the RFA for the next cycle of that grant is open now. I think it closes in December. So submit applications for that, and it's a great source of funding for professional development. We also used California Department of Food and Agriculture Specialty Crop Block grants to fund professional development for our staff.
Okay, fantastic. And again, we'll be sharing contact information for our speakers and presenters, so if you have specific questions for any of them, I know that they would welcome your contact. The next question is for Lindley. Lindley, you mentioned educating the students prior to implementing a plant-based program, and this person asks if there was any controversy that you encountered, and if so, how did you deal with it? If not, what did you do to avoid it?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. The education that I really provided was I put together kind of PowerPoints to any of the classes that were interested in it on what's really involved behind the scenes in an NSLP program, what offer versus serve means, what reimbursable meals mean. And then I also went into details on what I had worked on with the Humane Society on, the importance of organic and just plant-based nutrition in general. And it was very interesting because all of the students, even our fourth graders, which was my favorite part of doing this, are very, very interested in it. The fourth and first graders were even asking, is the yogurt organic? Are we getting organic corn, or is it GMO corn? So I was just, on my end, as a professional, shocked by what their knowledge already was. I didn't get any backlash from it. It's something that our directors have been asking for. And I'm trying to think of the other aspect of the question, but I didn't receive any backlash. It's all been very well received, and our projects continue to increase on the focus into food. I also left out of this presentation a project that we did with farmers markets, where all of the students had to create their own vendor licensing and create their own products and see what they could even certify as organic or non-GMO. So you'd be kind of shocked at what your students have knowledge on previously before you talk to them.
Right, that's an excellent point. Well, thank you for that, and glad to hear that there was no controversy encountered. And to that end, I guess I would like to go ahead and open that question up to others, because it is a question that I get quite often from institutions that I work with, is do the schools that work on these programs or introduce a Meatless Monday program encounter any pushback? So, Teresa, can you share what your experience was when you rolled this program out?
Sure, yes. Actually, when we rolled it out, also, we did not have any, and there was no controversy or questions on why we were doing it. It seemed like it just rolled out really smooth. Part of my presentation was I wasn't sure what the community or the parents and students' feedback would be, but we did not receive any negative comments.
Okay, thank you. And Alex, how about you? I know that Oakland has been doing Meatless Monday and then later the Lean and Green Wednesday now for many years. Do you recall what the initial reaction was from the community?
Sure. I mean, I think actually introducing Meatless Mondays predates my time here, and I've been in Oakland for 5.5 years. And from what I recall, I think the concern was that participation might go down, might decline. And of course, because the way, as we all know, the way school districts are designed, we're very dependent on students participating in the meal program to make sure that we have revenue to run these programs and operate. And so I think the strategy that Oakland used was they allowed actually chocolate milk on that day to bump up participation and make sure kind of as like the item to get students in the door, I suppose, to participate on these days, because we only offer white milk the other days. But participation hasn't gone down, and we've been really successful with some of the reduced meat options that we've pushed through. We do a lot of recipe testing, a lot of student engagement. We try and make sure that we have a really good sense of how a recipe is going to perform both at the elementary and the secondary level before it makes it onto the menu. And then, we are, as everyone in this presentation said, we make changes. Sometimes even through our best efforts, we recipe test. We think we have a lot of good data. We train our staff, and then, our recipe still doesn't do very well. And so sometimes we'll go back and, make some tweaks, some adjustments, or maybe do some more promotional material around the dish and see what we can do. Things they come on our menus, they come off, they get revised, they go back on. We're always tracking how dishes are doing.
Excellent. Yeah, it looks like you're doing a ton of taste testing. That was a very impressive figure there.
Yeah, we had a food corps service member last year who basically just did taste tests, and last year wasn't our first year doing taste tests, but we did a system where we were doing weekly taste tests, cooking the food out of one of our kitchens, and then a team of us from the central office, so myself, field supervisor, director, would pick up the food, bring it to an assigned site, and then do a taste test with students at that site. So we were able to really hit a lot of schools. But, it's a great way to promote some of the items that students might not be familiar with, some of those nice veggie side dishes, just to talk up farm to school, talk to students about what the source of the food that's on the menu is, educate just around the meal program generally. I love doing taste tests. I think they go a long way towards supporting the meal program.
Yeah, sounds like there are many benefits to that. So hopefully that's something that everyone can take away from this. We got another question about sharing the PowerPoints, and they will be available for download. And this session is also being recorded, so links to the recording will be made available as well. Another question that we got from a listener is, what does successful involvement with parents look like? So maybe, Teresa, if you could speak to that, and we'll ask that of everybody, but Teresa, we'll start with you.
Okay. Well, that's something that we're always working on, is to reach out to, parents, trying to communicate what we're doing in our program. But one of the ways that I've done more direct interaction with parents is that we have a group that works with our school called Padres in Action, or Parents in Action. And so we have a whole segment on the National School Lunch and, what the whole school lunch program pertains to, like with the requirements for the meals and what we're serving, and we'll bring in food samples so the parents get to eat it and taste it and provide feedback. So we've done that with all our menu items and our Meatless Monday information, and it's a good way to dialogue with the parents to get their buy-in and their understanding of why we're doing Meatless Monday, and then also share our other programs. So that's I try to reach out more directly to parents. I don't know.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. Lindley, how about you? What does involvement with parents look like at your schools?
Well, I know for this year, for all of our open houses and back to school nights, I worked with our vendor to create at least 3 sample recipe things for them to try, and it went over so well because they would just grab their paperwork and then you can say, this is the vendor that we're working with, this is what we're serving your kids daily, please feel free to try it. We also have welcomed a lot of parents to come to our lunch service and actually eat with their children, and every time they do, they're always shocked by what we're serving. Another thing that I've actually found that worked really well is I've pushed to have staff really work to come and try our program. And the minute that you have teachers and everyone trying your food, they're the ones that are talking to the parents on the daily basis. It just gets the whole conversation going. And I know for me that has helped immensely. And every time we've hosted something like this, the parents, like I said, are always shocked by this is what they're actually serving. This is what we're actually serving their child. I encourage everyone to really utilize any open house, anything that just has maybe your grades coming together, parent-teacher night. Use that as your platform to offer these items to them.
That's very smart, and I'm sure it's a very fulfilling moment to be able to surprise parents with what you're offering to students. Alex, what is Oakland doing to engage parents and community members?
Yeah, I do think that communicating to parents is really, really important, especially at the elementary level, because a lot of times it's at that level where parents are really more the decision maker than the student in terms of whether the student is going to participate in the meal program. And I will say that communication to parents in Oakland is a challenge for us. I don't think that we have that riddle figured out by any means. It's just so many schools spread out for a huge geographic network. Each school has their own sort of system for parent newsletters, and we've never really figured out a way to, streamline all of our communication. We use our website. We use our menu. Something that our communications department pointed out to us is that the menu is one of the most clicked on links on the OUSD website. So we try and put information about sourcing and about meatless options right on the menu because we know that that's a place that parents are going. I'll also just echo what was said before. I think that teachers are definitely a gateway to parents. We try and partner with other departments. So the wellness department has a system where there's wellness champions, and many of those folks are teachers. We always make sure to go present to those groups. We do open houses. We participate in the staff health fair and open house nights and that kind of thing. And a lot of it is kind of similar to what we do for students. It's a taste test. We have a few standard handouts about the meal program, and it's just really trying to get a chance to, put a name to face and talk about what's going on in the department.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing those ideas, Alex. And it's definitely difficult when I know we have so many different languages spoken within the district, and just getting people's attention in general can be a challenge. We got another question specifically for Lindley. Can you share your individual PowerPoints that you use to educate kids if somebody emails you individually to get those?
Oh, sure. Yeah, no problem. I know one thing that for the elementary in particular, I started to notice things that they didn't know what plums were. When we started to use chicken on the bone, they didn't even know what that looked like. They're so used to a prepackaged item. So I know for the little ones, I did even utilize a little bit of information from the Jamie Oliver experiments, but for our high school projects, I'm more than willing to share those PowerPoints. That's great.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. And we'll be, again, sharing everybody's contact information at the end of this presentation. We got a question from someone who says that they're at a small school district, very rural, and they've had a lot of issues getting meat alternate products from their vendor. those they can get don't have CN labels or product fact sheets. Does anybody have any advice? And I guess I'll let, if anybody has any advice, somebody to pipe up.
I know, well, this is Teresa. One thing that we did work on was just working with the company to get a product formulation sheet instead of the CN label, because that does work too, instead of having the CN label.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wonderful. Does anybody else have any advice or suggestions?
What's your vendor, or are you in a co-op? If you email me, this is Alex, if you email me separately, I can work with you one-on-one.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Alex. And again, we'll show Alex's contact information at the end of this conversation. Another question, and I'll ask this specifically to avoid confusion. I'll start with you, Alex, and maybe we'll open it up to others. Do you know if the USDA Food Buying Guide breaks down the protein in the meat alternate plant products other than beans?
Yep, so it's a big controversy around the USDA Food Buying Guide, right, because a lot of plant-based protein items, like something like quinoa, right, don't actually credit as a meat alternate. They only credit as a grain, but tofu is added to the USDA Food Buying Guide, and so anything that's using soy as a protein component, as the previous speaker was saying, Teresa, if you have a product formulation statement, then you can credit soy products and you can credit tofu. Beans are in there. Things that wouldn't credit per the USDA Buying Guide would be something like tempeh, right? If you want to use a product like that, it doesn't credit. I don't think it's not in the buying guide, but I think if you have a product formulation sheet, you can work it out in terms of the soy. Maybe Teresa has another answer.
Yeah, that's a great point. I know Teresa mentioned you're using Beyond Meat on your menus. Teresa, would you mind maybe speaking really quickly about what Beyond Meat is for those who may not be familiar with it, and then talking about how you're able to get that to credit as a meat alternate?
We used Beyond Meat, which they did, plant-based protein. But I know that actually, to be honest, my dietitian was the one that did most of the work with the company. We were able to work with the USDA on what part would actually credit as a protein, and then they were able to successfully fill out the product formulation sheet that showed that their product does contribute a meat alternative to the menu. So we just worked with the company and then the USDA's definition of what can make up a protein. So they developed the product formulation sheets, and I know that their product is also in some ready-to-use product, like ready-to-eat type products now. So they've kind of branched out.
Okay, wonderful. Yes, and that is a protein that's made primarily from pea protein. My understanding is that they also have some varieties that are gluten-free. So if you have students who are suffering from gluten insensitivities, then it still would work for them to have a meat alternate. I got a question from folks saying that this is a great idea. They're hearing a lot of different districts talking about Meatless Monday, and they would like to see what kind of meatless meals each district are doing. And I know that you all talked about some of the specific options that you're offering, and I wonder if maybe you could share what the best performing Meatless Monday or meat-free dish is at your district. We'll start with you, Lindley.
I know for mine, it's definitely the tamales that we're doing this year, especially since we put in the effort to actually make them ourselves, and they're even being delivered to the students still in the corn husk, and we offer it with salsa, guacamole, tomatillo. The kids just absolutely love it. And I would say the second best would be the cheese enchiladas, because we're using the same tomatillo sauce. So both are fantastic, but tamales are number one.
That sounds delicious. Teresa, how about you? What's one of the best or the best meatless option that you're serving or that students think is the best at your district?
Well, So right now, I guess it would be the same. We have the bean and cheese tamale that we serve on our menu. It's very popular. We have that on Mondays, but we also serve it on other days just because it's really popular. And probably if we do our second best, it would probably be our cheese enchiladas that we make with the refried beans.
Fantastic. So tamales for the win. Alex, what's most popular at OUSD?
One of the most popular items that we have is a bean and cheese tostada, actually. So it's something similar, I guess, that I've never had this, but I guess there's something at Taco Bell that's called like a Mexican pizza, and one of our staff was telling us about this. And we used to have a fish tostada, or we still have a fish tostada. We tried this bean and cheese tostada with students, and they really, really like it. So it's just refried beans, cheese on a tostada shell, it's nice and crispy, and then we make a homemade salsa that goes on top. And when we can get them and when they're in season and cheap enough, we also do fresh avocado. So it's a really, really nice vegetarian option. And then one of my personal favorites is our vegetarian fried rice and our vegetarian chow mein. And those is an interesting product I wanted to mention that we buy IQF frozen through Gold Star to look up the brand, but it's an immature chickpea, so it's a green chickpea, and it looks kind of like a green pea when you put it in fried rice or in chow mein, but it credits as a protein. It credits just like a legume. So the protein for those two dishes are coming from eggs and then from the immature chickpeas. They're really nice. They're great, really popular with students.
That's wonderful. I had the opportunity to go and visit the chickpea farm during the harvest of the green chickpeas, and they're really delicious. And for those who are worried about adding soy to their menu in the form of edamame, they make a great alternative to that, but it's a really good product. We got another question that asks, what do we see as potential, as future issues that may be a potential issue in our lunch programs? And I'm not sure if that's related specifically to meatless options, but we all know that there are potential regulatory changes. That's always a threat. So does anybody have any insight into future changes that might present a potential issue for lunch programs as it relates to this discussion on vegetarian meals? Maybe, Alex, I'll start with you and see if you have any thoughts about that. I know it's a hard one.
It's a hard question. It's a big question. I think that the school meal program really sits at an interesting intersection of, food policy, agricultural policy, education policy. So I certainly don't see a shortage of issues here. The food buying guide, I think, was raised a few times. And, one thing that I'd like to work on and advocate for with our legislative leaders is, and the regulatory bodies, at USDA, is to update that guide, because my understanding is it hasn't really been updated since the 70s. And so anyone, who works on school meal programs knows how frustrating that guide can be. And there's pieces, especially I think as we're talking about meat and incorporating, less processed meats and less meat in general, the way that meat credits, especially like processed products that have soy added in the food buying guide, is that addition of soy, which allows the meat product like chicken to retain water, will actually allow you to credit more of it as protein, which doesn't make any sense, versus when you're starting from, a raw product, just like a normal chicken drumstick that's going to dehydrate as you cook it because you haven't added that soy to help it retain water. The crediting is less. So, there's lots of those sort of embedded issues, I think, in the food buying guide that sort of preference some of the processed food options. So I think that that's something that, we really need to take a look at. And then also, as I mentioned earlier, some of the vegetarian sources of protein, that should really credit as a protein rather than, or in addition to crediting as a grain. I also, I think we need to look at some of just making it easier, making it not quite as challenging around, having to dig through all these product formulation statements. Let's update that document so that it's a little bit more user-friendly.
That would be tremendously helpful, and I imagine both the folks, everybody tuning into this would agree with you on that. Thank you for those.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have about 5 more minutes on this webinar, so I just want to issue a last call for questions. But I have a couple more questions regarding affordability and cost. So I know we got to see some great figures from Alex on how you've been able to actually save some money. And one of the things that's come up with respect to meatless meals, especially if you're trying to add more fresh foods to your menus, is that that may come with a cost, an additional cost in terms of labor. So I would love to hear from each of our presenters, starting with Lindley, how you've been able to afford some of these potentially more labor-intensive products and how you were able to overcome that obstacle, if that even was an issue. And Lindley, I know that you have a lot of packaged salads you mentioned, so I'm curious about the affordability of those and if cost is a big constraint for you.
Sure. Well, I think with anything, it's all trial and error, especially with starting something like this. The tamales taught us a lot very quickly because they can be very labor intensive. They can take up to 4 hours. So I would say one of the things that we did have to do was we had to invest in better equipment. So especially for the salads, we had to get lettuce choppers to help with that, to keep up with everything. For the tamales, we had to buy the specialty steamer equipment. Even for being able to do our own pizzas, we had to buy a whole new pizza oven that's double stacked, just to ensure that we're giving the quality out that we're proclaiming to the parents. I would say the way that we manipulated the labor hour issue is that it has to come down to training. A lot of things, it was just that they had to prep larger batches ahead of time because the staff was very used to making small batches of things, especially items like salsa or the beans, because they used to do just little portions of it. So I think for my end, my background's culinary nutrition, so I always think that you can solve anything if you train your staff correctly and just teach them how to mise en place correctly, and that's what we've done. It hasn't really affected our overall labor hours, and there's actually it took away some of the labor hours because of how we were packaging it and supplying it to the sites. We did a lot more in bulk shipments, especially for Tamale Day. So already taking that almost 10 to 15 cent cost off of the packaging that was for the meal item beforehand helped alleviate a lot of the budgetary stressors.
Fantastic. Okay, and I think I may just have time to hear from Teresa before we wrap up. But Teresa, I would love to hear how you were able to address this if it was an issue for your district.
Okay. Well, mostly what I try to do is because we have to balance like our staff and our kitchens and what we're able to do. So to keep our costs, well, we might have some items that are a little bit more expensive with food cost or labor, and then some items that are a little bit less. So we kind of just do a balance of our entrees. So we do, like, maybe we'll buy some ready-to-eat entrees, but then we'll make some scratch items using our existing labor, so we're not adding more labor to make those items. And like Lindley said, that definitely training of staff is really important. I'm lucky I have a lot of chefs that used to be at restaurants that now are our managers, so they're able to work with the staff so they can develop better knife skills and be a little bit more efficient with the time. So that helps a lot. And so just training and trying to balance what we have on the menu cost-wise.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all so much, and I'm going to now share contact information for everybody who participated in this webinar. Those were all very inspirational ideas. You all are very knowledgeable, and we couldn't be more grateful for all of the suggestions. We hope that everyone who's tuned in has been inspired to incorporate more plant-based meals into your programs, and we hope that you won't hesitate to reach out to any of us to get additional information if you would like to contact any of us directly. I'm going to now display information for the next two webinars in this series. There will be one on November 1st on plant-based menus and marketing to help with giving you additional ideas for how to market these programs. And then finally, Plant Power in the Kitchen on Wednesday, November 15th, which will help with providing ideas for specific things that you can add to your menu. So we are going to conclude the webinar, but if you would like to get information on professional standards, this does count for 1 instructional hour to meet your professional development hours. And then for people who are seeking credit as registered dietitians or DTRs, this does count for one continuing professional education unit from the Commission on Dietetic Registration. You simply need to go to bit.ly/CDE webinar, which is displayed on the screen, and you will be able to fill out a form there and get a certificate emailed over to you. Thank you again so much for tuning into this, and we hope that we will see you again on a future webinar.